Discover the amazing price of accepting an Apache woman's flower, an incredible eternal reward revealed. Emily sat at her desk, a scattered jumble of papers reminding her of lab experiments and grading. The clock ticked steadily, a constant reminder that she was on borrowed time. Outside, the relentless sun beat down on Winslow, glaring through her window as if mocking her mundane existence. At 36, she felt trapped, a science teacher driven to inspire young minds, but suffocated by the rigid community around her. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, urging her to settle into a secure life, to accept a path that sparkled like the relentless blue sky but lacked any real depth. As she flipped through her lesson plans, a knot twisted tighter in her stomach. Why was it so difficult to share her dreams? The moment she expressed a desire to pursue something different, a drive for herbalism or gardening perhaps, the conversations turned awkward, filled with unspoken judgments. Her students saw her as a vessel of knowledge but refused to fathom the struggles beneath her calm exterior. An unease bubbled within her, and her breathing quickened as she grappled with the weight of expectations. She had always been compliant, a good daughter, a dedicated teacher, but was there more waiting to be uncovered inside her? It was during a mundane grocery stop that she met Nizoni, the wise Apache woman whose presence radiated an undeniable energy. She offered Emily a single flower, vibrant against the browns and greens of the produce aisle. "This flower carries the essence of healing," Nizoni had said, her voice steady yet soft. "It is a symbol of acceptance." The moment their hands brushed, Emily felt a spark, an electric connection. But fear gripped her heart, whispering warnings. What would her mother think? Would her colleagues mock her newfound interest in colorful petals and native plants? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days that followed, Emily cared for that flower, nurturing it as a reflection of her buried creativity. Still, the tension coiled tighter as news swept through Winslow. A local corporation intended to exploit the sacred land of Nizoni's people. The anger rose like a tide inside her, a moral dilemma that forced her to confront the conformity she had always adhered to. What was the price of standing against the destruction of heritage? Isolation? Loss of the trust from friends and family? The potential to alienate everyone who expected her compliance? Every time she looked at the flower, she felt a blend of anticipation and dread. Could she truly defy the oppressive narrative that boxed her in? The stakes tightened, with whispers of dissent growing louder. Her students began asking questions, their eyes glimmered with curiosity about the injustices of the world, inspired by her fleeting passion. Yet with every point of motivation, Emily felt fear crawling deeper into her bones. How much was she willing to risk for the sake of someone else's freedom? The realization hit her unexpectedly hard. The conflict wasn't just about the land at stake, but the very identity she sought to reclaim. As tensions mounted, Emily stood at the precipice of a fight that could redefine her existence. The thunder of her heart beat loudly in her ears, each pulse a reminder that the road ahead was fraught with sacrifice. Decisions loomed heavy, and uncertainty clouded her mind as she remembered Nizoni's words, asking silently if she had the courage to grasp the flower that symbolized not just acceptance, but an undeniable choice. What did it truly mean to be free? Emily's hands trembled slightly as she dusted the soil around the flower, a routine that had slowly evolved into a ritual of self-discovery. Each evening, she would sit by the window, the fading sunlight painting the room in golden hues, while she whispered her dreams to the delicate petals. It felt foolish, yet liberating, as if speaking her aspirations aloud transformed them from mere thoughts into something tangible. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, the news of the corporation's plans weighed heavier on her shoulders. Silent protests simmered in the undercurrent of her community, gnawing at the edges of her consciousness. She witnessed her students' fearless inquiries about the land's sanctity and heritage. They, with their bold imaginations and youthful enthusiasm, were a stark contrast to her own fear-bound existence. One student, Jamie, particularly stood out. She was a bright girl with an insatiable curiosity and a passion that sparkled like the flower on Emily's desk. One afternoon, as Emily walked to her car after school, Jamie approached her. "Miss Hart, I overheard about what they're trying to do to the Apache land. Aren't you going to do something?" The question ignited the very conflict Emily had been avoiding. She hesitated, glancing at the pavement, suddenly feeling unworthy of the admiration in the girl's eyes. I don't know if it's my place to intervene," she stammered. "But you're a teacher. You teach us to fight injustice." Jamie's earnestness pierced through her layers of self-doubt. Each word was a gentle prod, urging her to confront what she had become. Emily felt a flicker of resolve. Jamie's words hung in the air, demanding accountability and action. Yet each time she considered taking a stance, a wave of fear washed over her. Fear of judgment, fear of losing her secure life, and the dread of losing those small pockets of comfort she had allowed herself in the community. That evening, staring at the flower, she realized nurturing it required commitment beyond aesthetics. Caring for it mirrored her struggle. What did it mean to truly nurture a source of life? Could standing up for the flower's heritage involve stepping outside her defined role? The crux of her realization sank in. Every choice led her closer to the woman she buried beneath expectations, and that woman craved significance beyond the four walls of her classroom. Emily ventured deeper into research about the corporation's plans and the growing opposition. A series of late nights turned her casual inquiries into an obsession. Each document, each piece of information felt like a piece of armor being forged. She discovered Nizoni's community had stood against corporate exploitation before and had a collection of strategies to resist. Empowered, she started jotting down notes, her voice finding clarity in the scrawled ideas. Words poured onto pages in a fluid rush, unveiling hidden bits of her potential as a writer and activist. Finally, with a resolve ignited by burgeoning confidence, she decided to host a discussion group at school. She was determined to create a safe space for her students to explore the issues free from the judgmental eyes of the wider community. As she crafted the invitation, something profound stirred within her. But as she finalized her plans, an unexpected message arrived, a warning about potential backlash from the school administration regarding her endeavors. The fear that had continually crept into her heart surged anew. The time had come to face the raw truth of her past decisions. Would she suppress her growing voice to play it safe, or would she finally embrace the woman emerging within? With those thoughts swirling in her mind, Emily looked at the flower and knew that the moment of reckoning had arrived. She felt the vibrating hum of opportunity pulsing through her veins. The next chapter of her life beckoned, charged with uncertainty but flared with the hope of freedom. As she took a deep breath, another question flooded her thoughts. Would she have the conviction to follow through, confronting both her fears and the silence that had long enveloped her? The moment of truth loomed like a shadow on the horizon, demanding her choice. Emily stood at her desk, her thoughts swirling like the papers scattered across its surface, each one heavy with implications. The ink from her pen felt foreign in her hand, turning from a tool for expression to a weight of responsibility. She glanced at the clock, the ticking beating like the echo of her heartbeat, driving her to make a decision. Should she push forward with the group? Was it worth the risk? Each conversation with Jamie haunted her, reverberating with doubt, but also awakening an untamed ambition. The warning she received didn't just linger in her mind, it wrapped around her throat, squeezing harder with each speculated decision. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, a thrilling but terrifying view of the unknown stretching out before her. She could either retreat back to the comfort of silence or dive into what felt like chaos. The following day at school, Emily arrived earlier than usual, searching for a way to let her commitment manifest a little more tangibly. In the empty classroom, she lingered over her whiteboard, feeling a sense of ownership and duty to the space. Slowly, she sketched out topics for the discussion group, attempting to gather her thoughts while keeping the essence of the conversations Jamie had sparked. Heritage, bravery, injustice versus comfort. Each word ignited both excitement and a twinge of anxiety within her. She needed to honor not only the Apache land, but the vibrant spirits of her students, ones like Jamie who were ready to engage with meaningful dialogue. It was not just about what she would teach, It was about what she would learn from these minds, eager for knowledge and change. As lunch approached, Emily decided to reach out to Jamie, seeking her input for the first session. They chatted animatedly, Jamie's insights and raw passion invigorating Emily's determination. For the first time in a long while, it felt like life was pouring through Emily's veins. Each word Jamie spoke ignited the flickering flame of her own dormant advocacy. Yet, the looming threat from the administration still gnawed at Emily, whispering warnings every time her resolve started to bulge. She confided in Jamie about her fear of repercussions, of being seen not as a supporter, but as a rebel in a structured environment. "What if they shut us down?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jamie's blue eyes sparkled with audacity. "They wouldn't dare. Everyone needs to know what's happening. We can't be too scared to speak, Ms. Hart." Those brave words propelled a sense of urgency. Emily could no longer see this as merely an opportunity to act as an educator. It was now solidified as her personal responsibility to instill courage in her students. The day of the group reached her sooner than expected. As Emily took her place at the front of the classroom surrounded by eager faces, she could feel the electric atmosphere swirling in the air. Heart racing, she whispered a small prayer to herself for guidance. With each discussion point she lay before her students, she felt herself tighten behind familiar walls. What if she faltered? Would they look at her with disappointment? But as Jamie began sharing her thoughts, and other students joined in, shifting from uncertainty to sharing powerful reflections, a sensation of liberation washed over Emily. She no longer felt like a timid vessel navigating her fears. Instead, she stood tall amidst those blooming minds, and her own heart began to pulse in resonance with their bravery. Suddenly, without warning, the door opened, and the principal walked in. Tension crackled in the room like static. All eyes turned toward him, uncertainty replaced by curiosity. Emily clutched her notes, shadows of doubt cascading down her spine. Had they been overheard? Was she about to face the backlash she had been so fearful of? With the room holding its breath, the principal's expression remained unreadable. Emily stiffened, bracing herself for confrontation. Would this be the moment her emerging voice would finally ignite a confrontation she could no longer escape or ignore? Inside her, a storm of emotions clashed as she faced the unknown, and the room grew thick with palpable anticipation. Emily recognized then that the real moment of truth wasn't just the administration's response, it was how she would react to the journey ahead. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the principal surveyed the room, his eyes glinting with a mixture of intrigue and authority. She could feel the air thickening around her, each second stretching into infinity as they waited for him to break the silence. Her instincts screamed to remain composed, to project control, yet inside, she teetered on the brink of anxiety. "Ms. Hart," he began, his voice even, as if he were addressing a particularly complicated algorithm rather than a group of inspired students. "I'd like to know what you're discussing here." The question hung palpably in the air, almost stifling. Emily glanced around at her students, their faces reflecting a blend of curiosity, apprehension, and excitement. They looked to her for guidance, searching for the leader they needed her to be. In that moment, she realized this wasn't just about her. This was about empowering them to embrace their voices. "We're exploring important themes related to our heritage and understanding societal challenges," she declared, her voice steadier than she felt. "This discussion revolves around the Apache identity and..." "Identity? Society? You mean..." He interrupted, and in that second, his normally composed demeanor wavered slightly. "You know this isn't part of the formal curriculum." His words struck like a blow, reverberating through Emily's newfound confidence. The ticking clock on the wall shifted from a mere backdrop to the catastrophic sound of her daring proposal teetering on the edge of collapse. Staring into the principal's eyes, she confronted a crucial moment. Do I retreat, or do I stand firm? We're not just conducting a lesson, she realized with a sudden clarity. We're creating a space for discussion that goes beyond textbooks. Her voice gained momentum, fueled by the charged atmosphere of the room and the clamoring voices inside her head that begged for authenticity. Many of my students want to explore what this all means for them. They deserve a platform. The principal frowned, his brow furrowing deeper, which only intensified Emily's determination. She had poured her heart into this initiative, channeling the passion that Jamie had ignited. If she receded now, she would not only fail herself, but also the bright minds who dared to dream bigger. I understand the risk, she continued, sensing that vulnerability could be her most powerful tool. But discussing these topics can provide a deeper understanding of each other and our world. Isn't that what education is all about? The silence that followed felt like a confrontation of its own, a battle of wills between tradition and progressive thought. Emily's heart raced, and for a moment, doubt crept in again. Was this what it meant to advocate? To stand at the precipice of institutional pushback? Her gaze flicked to Jamie's encouraging nod, grounding her. The student's eyes were glued to her, and for the first time, she didn't want to flee but to foster the very bravery she championed. The principal took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "We'll be assessing this initiative closely, Hart. This is your responsibility." The words detonated in her chest. Responsibility. She had anticipated resistance, but hearing the weight of the warning struck a nerve. It was a burden she had to carry, but she had already begun to shift the narrative. This wasn't merely about her. It had become about igniting a fire within a generation yearning to engage with their reality. As he turned to leave, Emily's thoughts whirled restlessly. Would she have the courage to face whatever scrutiny lay ahead? Was she equipped to support her students beyond this first vulnerable step? "Miss Hart," Jamie whispered, her voice bursting with excitement and encouragement. "You did it! You faced him like a warrior!" Emily felt an exhilarating rush surging through her. Until that moment, she hadn't realized how far she'd come or what it meant to own her path. But with this newfound purpose, a daunting challenge loomed. The stakes had just elevated. This wasn't merely about discussion anymore. It was about setting a precedent for future voices. What would it take to protect this initiative? How far would she be willing to go to uphold this truth? As the bell rang, signaling the end of the period, the whirlwind of emotions and decisions flooded her mind. Emily was confronted with the anxiety of the journey ahead, wondering, what if the very system meant to protect education now became a cage? The thought hung in the air as she inhaled deeply. Suddenly, a solemn determination replaced her trepidation. The real confrontation was just beginning. The classroom buzzed as Emily closed the door behind the last student. She allowed a moment to gather her thoughts, steadying her breath while examining the etched desk where her students had shared laughter and revelations. The excitement of the discussion flickered in her mind, but the stark reminder of her principal's warning overshadowed it. Responsibility weighed heavily, not merely as a title of her new role, but as a lighthouse guiding her through a dangerous storm. She sank into her chair, head resting on her hands, and grappled with the possibilities and repercussions of what lay ahead. How much authority would she have to wield to keep her students' voices alive? Sitting there, Emily calculated her next steps, a mental checklist forming in her mind. First, she acknowledged the fear rapidly consuming her. It was familiar, riddled with images of failure and inadequacy, but now it morphed into an ally. She couldn't afford to let it rule her, not when the stakes had been raised so high. In this moment, she recognized an undercurrent of strength pulsing through her. The realization that the weight of responsibility had the potential to breed innovation. With the right approach, her initiative could lead to flourishing conversations that would embolden students, opening doors they may have thought locked. "Maybe I should start by reaching out to other teachers," she muttered to herself, her voice steadying. Collaboration would be crucial. If there were any chance to solidify her initiative, she needed allies. Teachers willing to share insights or even join her in this uncharted territory. The thought ignited a flicker of hope. What if they could create a network of progressive minds, collectively voicing what many had been too afraid to say? Her phone buzzed, and Jamie's name appeared on the screen. Emily hesitated for a moment before tapping the message. Once it opened, her heart warmed at Jamie's enthusiastic response. "Ms. Hart, let's make a presentation. We can show the school how meaningful our discussions are." Emily smiled, buoyed by Jamie's passion. It was time to solidify this movement. Together, they could channel their energy into a tangible action step. With newfound resolve, Emily quickly typed back, suggesting they meet after school to draft a proposal. Ideas flowed as she imagined visual aids and compelling narratives about the Apache identity, intertwining student testimonials with broader implications. It wasn't enough to simply present her case. She needed to frame it as a dialogue, a necessary evolution in understanding their cultural ethos. After sending the message, the clock began ticking steadily on the wall, reminding her of the fleeting time. It was time to step out of her protective cocoon and into uncertainty. In her mind, she could hear reminders of all the times she had shied away from confrontation, and every instance felt like a lesson forging her into the advocate she aspired to be. Yet what would the resistance be like? Would colleagues support her, or would they close ranks against her ambitious endeavor? The classroom's quietness became an echo of potential battles yet to come. As the school day dwindled and Emily prepared herself for the meeting with Jamie, she couldn't ignore the growing skepticism looming at the back of her mind. It ignited a new question. Would she be able to navigate the complexities of administrative pushback, even as she faced her own self-doubt? The door creaked open, and Jamie rushed in, a whirlwind of ideas and enthusiasm. Emily took a deep breath, readying herself for battle, sensing the familiar surge of adrenaline coursing through her. The mocking whisper of doubt receded, replaced by a burgeoning anticipation to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. Yet beneath her courage was a lurking anxiety. What if this path to empowerment exposed deeper obstacles hidden within the school's entrenched beliefs? Emily locked eyes with Jamie and felt the exhilarating pull of their shared mission, knowing they were simultaneously on the path to discovery and to challenge the present order. The time had come to face the unknown, and possibly herself. Emily's pulse quickened as she and Jamie settled into the quiet corners of the library, their makeshift war room. The soothing scent of old books enveloped them, a welcome contrast to the storm brewing inside her. "Okay, let's brainstorm," Jamie said, her bright eyes sparkling with determination. Emily marveled at how Jamie's passion ignited a fire in her that she had forgotten existed. Perhaps she had underestimated the strength of youth and the courage embedded within their voices. She steeled herself, ready for their first strategic meeting. "We need to emphasize the importance of open dialogue in our presentation. It's not just about the Apache culture, it's about fostering a platform where all voices are heard." Jamie nodded vigorously, flipping through her notes. "We could start with personal stories from the students, real experiences that highlight the significance of their heritage. Maybe we can even include a panel discussion afterward." A twinge of anxiety tickled Emily's stomach. "Do you think the administration will allow a panel discussion?" "We won't know until we ask, right?" Jamie chimed in with infectious optimism. That simple remark nudged Emily forward, even as her self-doubt clawed at her resolve. She could hear the echoes of past criticisms, the dismissive laughter of her colleagues ringing loud in her head, but Jamie's enthusiasm pushed her to confront that fear. They began drafting an outline rich in student contributions, drawing from their autobiographical reflections. As the hours slipped away, they forged an intricate plan, layer by layer, crafting a presentation that merged passion with palpable elegance. Emily felt a strange mix of terror and excitement. It felt like walking a tightrope, exposed to the winds of potential backlash. Every flash of confidence was taunted by whispers of insecurity. What if her efforts would be dismissed as naive? Would they have the courage to stand before their peers, risking everything for a cause that might not resonate? "Emily," Jamie pulled her back from the brink of panic. "You've got this. Remember, it's not just our voices, it's the voices of everyone who feels unheard." A realization struck Emily, a moment of clarity revealing her motivation. This was bigger than her insecurities. She was standing at the precipice of a possibility that transcended personal achievement. It was about giving people the opportunity to embrace who they are. The weight of that thought grounded her, transforming her fear into purpose. "Okay," she said, firm and resolute. "Let's make it impactful. We need to show them that every story matters, and that includes ours." As they wrapped up their session, she couldn't shake off the feeling that this endeavor was already shifting something within her. Perhaps embarking on this journey would force her to confront not just the institution she worked for, but the biases she silently held herself. It was a realization both unsettling and invigorating. Just then, Jamie's phone buzzed, breaking Emily's revelry. As Jamie glanced at the screen, her expression shifted from excitement to concern. "Uh-oh," Jamie murmured. "Looks like Ms. Thompson wants to meet with us tomorrow to discuss our proposal." Emily's heart dropped. Ms. Thompson had a reputation for being tough, her criticism often biting. The creeping tension settled on Emily once more. "Do you think she'll support us or shoot us down?" Emily asked, feeling the weight of uncertainty heavy on her shoulders. "Let's prepare for the worst, but always hope for the best," Jamie replied, a fearless smile breaking through the clouds of doubt. As they parted ways, anticipation mingled with dread. Emily lay awake that night, chasing shadows of every possible outcome. She realized that amidst the fear of confronting Ms. Thompson, she was also confronting herself, unearthing insecurities she thought she had buried. Would she find the courage to face that fear? Tomorrow's meeting could very well determine the future of her vision, a test of everything she had embraced since stepping into her role. But more pressing was the question lingering in her mind. What if Ms. Thompson's response shattered this fragile network of hope before it even had a chance to bloom? Emily awoke the next morning with a sense of urgency flooding her veins. The sun cast a reluctant light into her window as if even the day was wary of what lay ahead. Her heart raced with every tick of the clock, a reminder that each second brought her closer to that meeting with Ms. Thompson. She needed to summon all the determination she could muster. What was it that Jamie had said? "It's not just our voices, it's the voices of everyone who feels unheard." This thought was both her anchor and her motivation as she readied herself. The casual clothes she chose felt like armor. They mirrored a part of her that felt comfortable and authentic. Emily muttered affirmations to herself, bolstering her confidence. Somehow, she had to turn her vulnerability into a strength. What if she approached the meeting as an opportunity to not just advocate for students, but also to redefine herself within this rigid institution? As she arrived at school, her nerves intensified. Each step felt heavy, laden with unspoken fears. She spotted Jamie outside the library, her smile unwavering. "Are you ready?" "Not sure if ready is the right word," Emily admitted, forcing a smile in return. "More like anxious." Jamie leaned closer. "Remember, we've worked hard. You've worked hard. Let's focus on why we're doing this." The grounding effect of Jamie's words ignited a flicker of certainty within her. They made their way to Miss Thompson's office, and as they awaited their turn, the walls of the hallway pulsed with anxiety. Emily's thoughts darted back to previous interactions with Ms. Thompson, with each assessment feeling like a weighty comment that had chipped away at her self-worth. But today was different. Today, she was armed not merely with hopes, but with substantial arguments supporting their vision. When the door finally opened, Emily felt a rush of warmth and cold simultaneously. Ms. Thompson sat at her desk, reviewing documents with an air of authority. "Come in, ladies." They stepped inside, and as they took seats, Emily felt the potent mix of dread and excitement swell within her. Words bubbled in her throat, ready to spill over. She exchanged fleeting glances with Jamie, seeking reassurances in her peers' unwavering eyes. "Let's get to the point," Ms. Thompson said, crossing her arms. "What's this proposal about?" With that, a dam of emotions broke within Emily. She veered into their carefully crafted outline, recounting how the voices of Apache students mattered and should be highlighted. She shared anecdotes seamlessly woven with statistical data, appealing to both the heart and the intellect. As Emily spoke, she felt something shift. The weight of her insecurities eased as determination flowed through her voice. It was liberating to express the vision they had worked on so meticulously. The fears haunting her the night before began to dissipate. However, the moment was fleeting. Ms. Thompson raised an eyebrow and interrupted. "And what specifically suggests that this will be effective in an environment resistant to change?" Chills raced down Emily's spine. Did Ms. Thompson's skeptical tone mean a dismissal? Yet instead of curling inwards, Emily leaned forward. "This proposal isn't just about influencing the campus climate, it's about helping students reclaim their identity. If we don't create spaces for dialogue, we are complicit in perpetuating silence." Silence hung in the air, thick and tangible. Emily felt her heart pound. pushing her toward the precipice of what could be an irreversible confrontation. She had not merely presented her ideas, she had laid herself bare, exposing her commitment to fostering change. Ms. Thompson studied her, the initial steely facade wavering slightly. "You're passionate, I'll give you that, but is your passion enough to withstand the scrutiny from higher-ups?" Emily swallowed hard. This was the moment where her hesitation could either fuel defeat or beckon undeniable resilience. "I'm willing to face that scrutiny if it means standing up for those who feel invisible," she replied, her voice steady. Ms. Thompson leaned back, a scrutinizing expression on her face, leaving Emily caught in limbo. Would her courage translate into support, or was this just the beginning of a more turbulent road ahead? The confrontation lay bare many possibilities, but Emily faced them with a newfound strength. The meeting held the potential to either dismantle the fragile framework she was building or to lay the groundwork for something bolder. "Let's see if your passion can translate into something concrete," Ms. Thompson finally said, tilting her head thoughtfully. Emily's breath caught. Was that a flicker of acceptance she spotted? As they left the office, Jamie looked at her bright-eyed. "Did you see that? She didn't dismiss us outright. That's a win." Win or lose, Emily realized it was about much more than a mere proposal. It was about her transformation into a voice for meaningful dialogue. Yet as they stepped back into the vibrant chaos of the school, Emily couldn't shake the lingering question that haunted her. Was she really ready to take on the potential fallout from this endeavor? Emily's mind spun as she meandered through the bustling hallways, still reeling from her encounter with Ms. Thompson. Jamie's encouraging words echoed in her ears, yet doubt slithered into the crevices of her mind. The moment of strength she'd conjured seemed increasingly fragile with each step. Her confident facade cracked ever so slightly as she navigated the sea of students bustling toward their next classes. "Emily, hey!" a familiar voice called from behind. It was Ryan, her friend from art class, his face filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "You okay? You look a bit distant." "I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile. The lie tasted bitter. "Right," he said, shoving his hands into his pockets, a skeptical look crossing his features. "Big meeting with Ms. Thompson today, huh?" "What gave it away?" she joked half-heartedly. Ryan stepped closer, his tone softening. "Seriously, you've been working so hard on that proposal. I know it means a lot to you. Just don't forget to take care of yourself in the process." His words struck a chord. Emily felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. How could she ask for support when the very foundation of her purpose felt uncertain? She appreciated his concern, yet the reality of her aspirations loomed heavy above her head. In seeking to represent the voices of her peers, did she risk losing her own? The dismissal of her ideas by Ms. Thompson echoed in her mind. What if support from higher-ups was never forthcoming? Was she deluding herself to think she had a stake in this? The insecurity bolstered her fear as they walked toward the art room. "You know, I got an idea," Ryan said, his voice tugging her back to the present. "We could do an art exhibition about cultural identities. Highlight what makes each of us different. It could tie into your proposal. Creativity speaks louder than words sometimes." The enthusiasm in his voice was contagious, yet Emily felt an internal battle. But what if we push for something bigger? What if we aim to change the school's narrative and not just create pretty pictures? "Easy, Tiger," he replied with a smirk. "I get it. You want to be a game changer, but starting small makes it easier to get people on board. Maybe you need to allow yourself to be vulnerable before you can be a voice." The weight of his advice resonated deeply. Maybe he was right. Perhaps not every impactful change needed to start with a revolution. What if she began with her own art, a way to channel her fears and hopes into something tangible? As the realization dawned on her, she felt a flicker of creativity ignite within. Later, Emily dove into her sketchbook, releasing her emotions through charcoal and color. Each stroke allowed her to examine her fears: the fear of failure, the fear of not being accepted, and the fear of losing her voice altogether. But with each image, she also began to visualize what empowerment could look like, not just for herself, but for the Apache students she sought to uplift. As she worked, her spirit brightened. The warmth of determination surged within her. In a last flourish, she set down her tools, taking a moment to appreciate her creation. An intricate flower, symbolizing growth and resilience. If she could ground her identity in art, perhaps she could also redefine her role in this endeavor. She wasn't merely a voice, she was an artist, a dreamer determined to reshape narratives. Emily looked up just as Jamie strolled in, a bright smile splitting her face. "What's that?" "Just a little something I've been working on," Emily replied, enthusiasm bubbling over. "You're a genius," Jamie breathed, observing the piece. "This could be part of your pitch." "Yes, I could use this to visually represent what I'm trying to communicate." Emily's mind raced with possibilities, inspiration wrapped around her like a cloak, imbuing her with a sense of purpose. As the day wore on, she felt herself transforming, less paralyzed by fear and more driven by the potential impact of her actions. Yet even as she found her footing, a lingering doubt whispered in the corners of her heart. Could she really push forward and gain the consensus she needed? After all the effort, was she growing into a change-maker, or simply another voice echoing unaware in the shadows? The next challenge loomed just ahead. Emily could feel it, the undeniable tingle of tension sparking against her decision to present her art along with her proposal. But what if her boldness only led to scrutiny? The moment drew near, and Emily clenched her fists, preparing to step into uncharted territory. What awaited her as she faced not just mentors, but her own vulnerabilities? Emily stood in front of her mirror. The reflection staring back at her seemed both familiar and foreign. The weight of the upcoming presentation descended like an oppressive fog, fogging her resolve. The intricate flower design swirled in her mind, a symbol of everything she wanted to achieve, yet the anxiety gnawed at her insides. She took a deep breath, exhaling slowly as she tried to coax her racing heart into a steadier rhythm. "Focus," she whispered to herself. "You're an artist. You have a voice." But even as she said it, she felt the tremor of self-doubt creep back. The brushstrokes on her canvas represented her vision, but would they resonate with others? Would they see what she saw, or would they dismiss it as mere embellishment? Each encounter with Ms. Thompson echoed in her mind, the harsh critiques, the lack of support. Had she truly let that define her? She needed to confront not only her mentors, but the barriers she had placed on her own expression. Art was about vulnerability, about laying bare the deepest sensations and experiences. To truly make an impact, she realized she had to reveal more than just her talent. She needed to weave in her story. The pressure spurred her into decisive action. Emily turned away from the mirror, grabbing the sketchbook that had become both her refuge and her battleground. Each drawing was now a stitch, weaving together her narrative, her fears, and her aspirations. Maybe, in embodying her truth through her art, she could cultivate the change she desired in her school environment. After hours of rifling through her sketches, the room was strewn with crumpled papers, a reflection of her inner turmoil. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her thoughts a jumble of intentions and self-questioning. What if she took a leap, merging her art with her proposal? She found her pencil again, retracing the delicate petals of the flower, envisioning it larger than life, bold and resplendent. This could be a turning point, she realized. It was more than art. It was her opportunity to demand recognition, not just for her ideas, but for the entirety of herself. The plan took form, fierce and unyielding, yet it required her to lay bare her soul. What if she failed? What if Miss Thompson saw only a student, not the artist she aspired to be? Hours later, fatigue settled in, but so did clarity. Emily had crafted a visual narrative, a piece that told her story as an Apache woman with dreams of change. It wasn't merely a flower. It pivoted into a symbol of authenticity, empowerment, and the courage to disrupt the silence suffocating the voices she aimed to elevate. She could feel a shift within her, a burgeoning confidence that pulsed through her veins. But as she prepared for the pitch, a new doubt crept in. Would her peers understand? Would they be able to connect with her struggles through her art? Vulnerability was a double-edged sword. It could open doors or lay her bare to criticism. Each step felt like a tightrope walk as she balanced her aspirations with the incessant fear of exposure. As the presentation day loomed closer, Emily found herself questioning everything. Despite her growing determination, anxiety spiraled around the corner of her heart. Would her art, a representation of her authentic self, draw people in, or would it repel them? The morning arrived, and with it came the weight of expectation. Emily clutched her sketchbook tightly as she rehearsed in her mind. It was time to step into the light, to face both her mentors and herself. Could she embrace the challenge, reveal her truth, and find the acceptance she sought? In that moment, she took a deep breath, squarely facing the looming doorway ahead. Whatever awaited her, acknowledgement or rebuke, this was her chance to transform doubt into determination. No more hiding. The time had come to uncover what lay beneath and discover the price of acceptance, a daring leap toward her dreams. As she approached the threshold, each heartbeat resonated with her truth, ready to lay it all bare. Maybe, just maybe, the empowering flower could bloom where it was planted, reaching for the sunlight through the cracks of insecurity. Emily stepped forward, ready to embrace the unknown, knowing that in her pursuit to change the narrative, she was finally ready to confront the woman she had yet to become. Emily stood before her classroom, an array of anxious faces staring back at her, mirroring the restlessness inside her. The moment had finally arrived for her to unveil the proposal that could change not only their school's culture, but also her own identity. Holding her breath, she sensed the weight of anticipation, her heart echoing the relentless rhythm of determination. Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to discuss not just our curriculum, but how we can engage in meaningful dialogue about our identities, she began, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves. Glancing at the flower illustration she had prepared, an intricate blend of colors and symbolism, she felt a flicker of empowerment surge within her. As she spoke of heritage, struggle, and resilience, Emily felt a shift. These were not just words on a page, but a profound declaration of who she was becoming. She interwove her own journey with the stories of her Apache ancestry, each brushstroke of the flower encapsulating the sentiments she had long buried. Her students listened intently. Jamie's eyes sparkled with excitement as she chimed in, supporting Emily's call for cultural dialogue. We need to explore issues affecting us. Let's talk about what it means to be proud of our roots. Interactive discussions bloomed, illuminating perspectives that had long been suppressed. Questions transitioned from uncertainty to curiosity, igniting a flame of commitment. It was exhilarating. Emily could feel each student engaging with raw passion, shedding the confines of societal expectations. Yet, Emily's pulse quickened as she recalled Ms. Thompson's previous warnings. As they moved toward assembling the final presentation for the school board, Emily felt the looming threat of scrutiny, but this time, it fueled her resilience not to falter. In the days that followed, a whirlwind of collaboration ensued. Students engaged in research, artwork, and reflective writing, all leading up to the final presentation. Emily's role evolved from just a facilitator to a mentor, empowering them and nurturing their convictions as they inadvertently shaped her own. When the day of the presentation to the school board arrived, Emily stood at the forefront, surrounded by her students. The stakes felt higher than ever, but as she looked at their eager faces filled with hope, she found a renewed sense of purpose. This was not solely about her or her apprehensions. It was a representation of what she had set out to change, giving voice to the unheard. As the meeting commenced, Emily shared her vision, interwoven with heartfelt reflections from her students. The room was charged with palpable energy as they detailed the importance of cultural representation, bridging gaps in understanding. To her astonishment, the board members leaned in, mirroring the enthusiasm of the youth surrounding her. There was pushback, procedural trepidation, but beneath it all simmered a curious acceptance. Ms. Thompson observed keenly, her once ice-cold demeanor showing cracks of acknowledgement. When Emily finished, silence enveloped the room, before one board member finally spoke. This is a refreshing perspective that we've overlooked for too long. Your courage to lead this dialogue is commendable. With each word, the ignition of her resolve brightened. The validation was more than she'd ever anticipated, a confirmation that her fight was not in vain. Yet more significantly was the realization she was not just a teacher, she had morphed into an advocate, a catalyst for change. As Emily took her seat, her heart soared. plans began crafting themselves, opening doors for workshops, cultural events, and curriculum renovation, an idea burgeoning right before her eyes. Outside the confines of the school, Emily felt the weight lift. A definitive sense of liberation and accomplishment resonated through her. The flower, standing tall on her desk in the classroom, came to symbolize not just acceptance but transformation. Its bright colors mirrored the vibrancy of her students' voices that she had allowed to flourish. In the months following, as she walked into her classroom, she was greeted with all the enthusiasm and passion that she had hoped to inspire. Emily recognized that this venture had changed her too. Confidence surged through her veins, tempered by humility. Every day, her classroom transformed into a space where vulnerability thrived, a landscape for authentic discussions about culture, identity, and resilience. Students began to flourish as scholars and advocates themselves, empowered to speak their truths and honored for the diverse paths they walked. Emily had become part of something larger. She was no longer imprisoned by societal expectations, but had achieved acknowledgement of her place within education, with a jubilant embrace of her identity. The journey had not come without sacrifices and moments of uncertainty, but in facing her fears, Emily had conquered the most powerful opponent, her own self-doubt. With each small victory, she had forged ahead, cultivating not just flowers, but a garden of courageous voices yearning to bloom. As she reflected on her path, Emily smiled, knowing she now occupied her rightful space, a confident teacher, an unwavering advocate, and an authentic individual thriving under the sun, not just surviving but flourishing with purpose. Her story was far from over. It was merely beginning, and the flowering legacy of acceptance, resilience, and empowerment would surely continue to grow. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.